What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Wrenching Wrecked. Lots of things happening. So the moped is running and riding. Needs some tuning, definitely needs more fuel up top and I think less fuel down low. But again, this was a $13 carburetor on Amazon. So the fact that it's running, idling, and doing anything is great. Hopefully it's just regular Mikuni jets because we got a ton from the XLCH. So we're going to go through and get that tuned, but that's not going to happen on camera. I'm just going to kind of mess around with that and bring it back when it's finally dialed in. Only because it's boring to watch somebody pull a carburetor off, change the jets, do it over and over and over and over again. And you guys really can't feel what the differences are. I can walk you through it, but you can't physically feel or ride it or see what I'm dealing with. Just doesn't seem like a good video to me. V-twin order finally showed up. Actually, this showed up quicker. I just haven't had time to work on it. And Sissy Bar showed up. So we got the Sissy Bar brackets. Just cheap Chinese coating on here. I'm gonna mock it all up, get everything laid out first, and then we're probably gonna bring these up to the shop and do this differently. I think we're gonna go gloss black on here. What else? Moped wise, we got some sprockets, chains, and the important part, the spark plug head temp gauge. This makes tuning much easier, and it's nice to have on there, especially on these, because if you're maxed out at 45, 50 miles an hour or something like that, you want to keep an eye on those temps. It's not hard to overdo it on the old two strokes, especially these, and fry your motor. So I don't know what happened. Allergies got me when as soon as I walked out here. I've been sneezing, but excuse that for me. But in the box we got the other plate for the Sissy Bar, and then the Sissy Bar itself with some hardware and a backrest. So we'll go through this, lay this out, and as you see or saw, we're switching up the bars again. So we got risers, new bushings. I found them in the box, so it doesn't make sense not to just refresh those while we're in here. So get this set up. These are not the bars we're running, but these are the risers we're going to be running. Let's get these started. Riser bushings are pretty simple, top, bottom. These ones came with the washer on the outside, and then there's a sleeve on one. Those go through. Use good hardware when you're doing this. Don't throw some cheap stuff in there. They do hold your handlebars down. You do not want these bolts to ever break or back out. A little bit of Loctite too would be a good idea. I'm not doing that because I don't know for sure if these are going to be on here yet. Just still in mock-up phases, but I think I finally got a plan figured out as to what we're going to do here. It's easier to swap the bars when the risers are actually mounted. We switched the bars back. This is the set of bars that came on the XLCH. We're going to go back to this. It's not dimpled, so I do have the issue on Evo wiring where the wires run through the switch housing and typically go through a dimple. I was looking at my buddy's wide glide because he did a 6-over setup on his. And I think what we're going to do is mount all of these and then take a grinder or a carbide bit and notch the housing on the master cylinder and on the clutch lever to run the wires through. So instead of having the dimple here, we're just going to go around here and hit that with the carbide on both sides, run the wires tight through the bar or through the clutch and the brake housing, and then we're just going to zip tie them down. I'm not doing an internal wire on this. I'm not a big fan of that. I like having everything open and accessible and not have to worry about things shorting out on the inside of the bars. I've done the internal wirings for other people. That's fine. It's not for me. I don't care enough. It's old. I don't mind the wires running down the bars for now. Just my approach. Take it or leave it, but that's what we're gonna do. So just Apes on some old stubby 4-inch risers. I think it's gonna be a pretty traditional setup, and then we'll get this Sissy Bar on. So I think I want to start with that, but I wanted to at least get the bars mounted before we put this back in the air. And then we can get it up in the air, mess around with hardware and whatever else we need. I'm going to do a temporary setup on this, just get everything laid out. So we'll bolt the Sissy Bar together, figure out where the bag racks are going to go, and I'll probably be taking nuts and bolts out of here a bunch of times. So I think we're just going to time lapse that until I get it done. Only because I don't have the proper size hardware. I don't know if these need to go on the outside of the strut rails or the inside. Lots of variables. We are going to keep the bag mount. I know it takes away from that clean look, but again, it's an Evo, and I have choppers. I have stripped down bikes. These are not going to be them. This is the newest, probably best running bike we're going to have up here, even though we haven't gotten it running yet. Those all run great. Don't get me wrong, they don't run terrible at all, but in terms of reliability, jump on and go, this is going to be the one, hopefully, kind of like the Sporty is. So that's what we're going to do. I'll throw you guys up on the tripod and get this rolling on time lapse so I stop blabbering. Alright, so first issue, if I go with the plate on the outside, we're running into some problems. Hardware's too long, hitting the fender here, and the gapping is pretty far out. So, you gotta figure out, maybe the Sissy Bar needs to go on the outside of the bracket plates. Let's try that instead. A little crooked here from the back of the bike, so I'll let this keep rolling as I try and figure out what we gotta do to make this fit. got the fender full mounted with the exception of these last two. I just gotta tighten up these last two bolts on the outside. I am going to ditch the metric hardware that they give you. It's little, what are they, M6s. We're gonna upgrade to grade 5 quarter 20s. And if I really cared enough, I could probably do stainless little Allens or something. But for now, we're just gonna run actual hardware. I don't really trust Chinese imported hardware, especially on a backrest. Quarter 20 is much bigger, not much, but a little bit beefier, and I know these are grade 5. Tried and true method. Actually, let me see if I got some stainless ones. I might. I got a plethora of decorative hardware, but I don't know what sizes. No, I won't have enough. So we'll just do 1 inch quarter 20s all the way around. And that should be a little bit more stable. I don't think 3/4 big enough. Even if I cut the heads off, I'd feel better about it than running undersized hardware here. Yeah. 3/4 just a tiny bit too shallow there for my liking. I need like, but 1 inch will work. We're not going for pretty show bike at all here. Strictly function. No instructions with this amazing quality China kit, but for the price, I mean, I couldn't build this for what it cost me to get, unfortunately, even with the excess parts. But by the time you add up time and getting the plates made and all this, like, unfortunately, that's the way of the world sometimes. I like making Sissy Bars too. That's one of my favorite parts. But we'll save that for the chopper build where we are making all the parts. I know that's a ways out, but we got that ironhead chopper sitting over at my buddy's shop that I think I'm actually going to try and get that bottom end back soon so I can start assembling the cases, because I got the cylinders machined and everything else too. Going off on a tangent here, but if I can get at least the bottom end glued together, it's going to make assembly go back together a little bit faster as well. The only thing I got left is putting a transmission back in there and making sure that back wheel lines up before I finish tearing it down and some more of the frames. Well, whatever. That's another day. Don't want to talk about a bike you guys haven't seen in forever. But it's coming. Lots more fab on that one. That's what I was getting at. All right. This, I think, is going to work much better. So we will go through and get little stainless Allen heads here, I think. 1 inch length will work just fine. Also really leaning towards doing this gloss black, so not a big gloss fan, but on this it makes more sense to me. What, do I have to drill this myself? Come on. Well, since I gotta wait on mounting, I might actually end up putting a second one of these in. I know it only needs one, and ideally you probably want it somewhere around here, but Dottie's tall, so I'm gonna wait for her and let me know where she wants this. We'll use that lower one, but I might do 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top. Down here is where it's supposed to go, but So we're gonna hold off on that one. I'd rather have a little bit of a gap there. Not that I know, I haven't ridden on the back of one of these, but to me, let's come around to the front. If you want to lean back into it, you want a little bit of a gap there. So 2 screws might work. You can just make a little bracket and use some longer ones up top here too, but I think this is probably about where it's going to go. And she can kind of lean back into that, I think. But we have a Sissy Bar. It's not going anywhere. Everything's rigid mounted on the fenders. I didn't do any of the bushings in here. Kind of an oddball mix of hardware. We got bolts, through bolts going this way. We got acorns coming this way, but bags are gonna go on here and cover all of this up, so I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. So there's that. Now, what I'm gonna do is try and clean up all of the crap that I have all over the bench, because I have missing tools everywhere. Well, not missing, but they're lost on the workbench, so I gotta go through those and then get rid of my workbench. Big fat comfy Evo seat. Excellent workbench while you're messing around with bars. Then we'll bring this back down. Ah, crap. Maybe I'll clean up the carb real quick before we get further into this. So in the V-twin box, I have the gas tank mount kit because we had some broken studs here. Yes, I can drill it. Yes, I can try and fix it, but I'm missing a bunch of the bushings and the hardware for the tank mount already. So I ended up just getting a full tank mount kit on Evos that comes with this bracket. So I'm replacing this bracket. And I have a new one of these upper mount brackets that we're not gonna use. No need on this one, but we'll replace this lower one and then go through some of the tank bushings and things. Try and get those queued up to get back on, but before we do that, we got to make sure we get that carburetor back on. We also have 62-inch clutch cable and a bigger, what did I order? 74. So we're gonna have to lay those out because the clutch cable routing is not gonna work with this bar combo. So, clean up, carb rebuild. We'll be back when I'm done with those 2 things. Okay, got this off. Everything's free and blowing the way it's supposed to, or flowing the way it's supposed to. So, all we really need to do is go through and make sure that this accelerator pump is working, which will be the next thing we gotta do here. Leave it down because there's going to be a chuck ball right here, 2 of them. So we'll dump those out. And check our diaphragm, which doesn't seem that bad. Interesting. All right, let me find a new one of these. We're going to replace this, put it back together, and see if that fixes it. It's very sketchy. Just poured some fuel in the bowl to test this, but I don't know how much gas is left. You can see it's getting a little bit of squirt through there, so I'm gonna count that as good. Filled it up, it's been dripping gas everywhere, but when I pump it, it squirts out the accelerator. It's probably still gotta get clocked a little bit. Doesn't look the best, but we're gonna come back and fine tune it because I wanna hear this thing run today. Okay, we got the carb bolted back on. That's good enough. I'm gonna have to vacuum cap this and run the throttle cable and fuel line and all that later, but I just want to get the motor stuff kind of back together. I'm hoping to try and fire this later on today, but I forgot I got family coming out and some cars to work on. Some brake stuff and tires and all that fun stuff that takes away from working on this. So what we're gonna do is just slap the motor mount back in
Get this stupid floating bracket piece back in first. At least a thread or two. Come on. So much stuff in my way. What do you need this many wires for? All right, so that one's in, and we'll loose set these. Just get everything kind of hand started, and then we'll tighten these down. There's a good chance that carb's gonna have to come back off again. I got one screw on the accelerator pump. It's not completely stripped, but it doesn't feel good. So we're gonna have to address that one on the accelerator pump side. So if it's the, it's not the long one or the outside one, it's that third one on the bottom of the pump. So that will probably need to be addressed at some point. I might have another float bowl up at the shop too, but I'm gonna rip down these motor mount bolts. That'll lock all of this in. And then at least get the horn back on here so it's not all dangling around in my way. This is sketchy and very unconventional, but it should work. So what we're gonna do is take this switch housing and clearance it a bit for some wires. What did I just drop? Everything? Where's my other one? Yeah, this will work fine. Unless I have my air tool ones, but then the compressor goes on and it's loud. Let's see. So I'm gonna open the switch housing up and pull the wires back just a little bit, but I'm gonna basically channel a little groove here, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. I don't know how much air I have. So while the compressor was deafening me, I got the carb cable or the throttle cable hooked back up into the carb, and then I'm just kind of roughly getting the switch housing and the controls laid out again before we drop this back up on the bars. Come on. Just assembled enough so it's not going to fall apart, and maintains all the parts together. And what we did here was basically notch a little section in the wiring housing, the switch housing, sorry. And that'll allow me to lay the cables a little bit tighter, closer to the bars, and get them out of the way, whether I want to go underneath the brake master or I might actually notch into the master a little bit too. There's a lot of meat on the casting. Like I said, slightly unconventional, but should work. Oh. Somehow in the course of doing this the other day, I lost my long Allen key, so I gotta figure out the socket version. So I will have to find that at some point. But we're not going for full tight right now anyway, just slightly loose. Now, since I machined this, I guess you guys can't really see what I'm doing over here, huh? Notice that the bars just kind of drop out. I don't have dimples in the bars, but now I don't need them. So there's plenty of room there. Should work just fine. So we'll keep tightening those down, but on the throttle side, hold the switch housing since it's not bolted. Wide open. Return, and you can see the accelerator pump working. It's like a multiple win. So let me keep jamming on the controls. It's a pain in the ass now that the bike's up in the air, so we might drop that back down too. We'll see. I gotta figure out where it's gonna land on here, and then we'll notch a little bit through the housing as well. Yeah, we should come back down. I'm gonna take the clamp from the master and basically cut a channel through this. There's a lot of meat on here. I think that should be all right, and that'll get me around the dimpled bar issue. I'm gonna leave the master side alone and then just kind of run the wires wherever I can here. Compressor, it's annoying, I know. You think it sounds bad for you, how do you think I feel? And just like that, I think we'll be all right here. Okay, compressor's finally off. Basically, the channel allows me to mount the brake lever on here. Hopefully that switch is engaged. We'll check that in a minute. Just gonna check it on the taillight, because why not? I think this should be okay. So the wires still run a little tight through there, but they're gonna be fixed through the switch housing. So that shouldn't be too bad. Let's click this on. We have light. Is that the brake light stuck on? Let's see. The switch mount down here is a little janky, to be polite. The bracket for the brake lever is pretty bent. So I might have to pop this off and recheck that at some point too, but tail light, brake light. Okay, so we gotta move this over a little bit more. Okay, so I know the brake light is stuck on, which tells me we didn't move this close enough to the housing. And we'll try and push this pin in. It's almost like I gotta lock the switch in place first. Grab a little flashlight. I'm working blind underneath this stuff. Okay. This is getting a little ridiculous now. Why is this lever not even close to where it's supposed to be? Okay, I'll show you. Not gonna try and over-explain this. There's a bunch on brake light switches, I believe, already out there. But I will tell you that my brake lever is not where it's supposed to be over here. Oh, apparently that rotates a little bit. My bad. Well, that would help quite a bit, actually. Lock this down. At least snug. Okay, we are good now. Come back here. That was kind of a pain. Light. So we are good to start snugging all this stuff down. And then what? I don't know yet. We gotta do the same thing. We're gonna have to machine out one section on the clutch cable too. Throttle cable's rough laid out, wires rough laid out, so tanks can go back on later today, fuel can go in. We should be about ready to fire this thing. Kind of a sporadic video all over the place, but making progress. Sissy bar and fender are done. Rear tire is on and mounted. I have a brand new 21 front up at the shop with a tube, but I gotta get everything back on the bike off the lift, and then we'll do the front tire on the ground, because that's a little bit easier. But before we pull the front end off, I do want to fire this up and potentially take it around the block. That's the plan. More wiring, more clutch. I don't know if I'm gonna film the grinding thing because the air compressor's terrible, but I'm gonna do the exact same thing, lay it out, figure out where the wires are running, and then we'll notch. I'm not going anywhere near, if you noticed, I didn't go near the seam here where the two pieces meet. Go to the inside. There's enough meat, there's enough room. I'm pretty sure this is a brand new housing, so why not hack it up? Oh well. We'll be back later. If not, it'll make it into tomorrow's video.